right?
Hmm.
Hello and welcome to the Mega Monthly Zodiac Show for the Aries State of Awareness. I am Sensei Christopher Wotecki, your host. I'm joined by my co-host, Robbie Hunt.
Hey there, Sensei. Hello, everyone. Boy, we're excited to talk to you about Aries. We were spending a bunch of time getting it together. There's so much going on.
So much going on. And, Aries has an amazing title, Christening the We Go. We'll talk about
Hmm.
what we mean by that. We'll dive into that. But first, we want to review what we have gone through with Pisces consciousness. It has been a hell of a ride, has it not, for Pisces? I mean, we're conjuncting Neptune, so it could not end more perfectly.
Yeah, a big deal. That hasn't happened since 1861, Abraham Lincoln's time. You talked about that in the pep talk.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
the,
literally I mean, Abraham Lincoln had this conjunction, and I imagine it was before the war, right?
mhm,
And
mhm.
so overall, I mean, I think today the Sun conjunct Neptune is sort of like a final test of moral character, final test of your spiritual truths, all sorts of things. And yeah, one of the last men to ever have that happen was Abraham Lincoln. It's crazy.
For me, the entire Pisces transit has been that way.
Totally. Yeah, yeah. I
Eh,
mean,
eh,
go ahead. You go
yeah,
first.
no, it has been the epitome of are you are you willing to stand forth? Are you willing to go do? Are you willing to rise above? It has been the test of the perseverance. It's been the test of stepping out in a place that no one else is doing. It's just been so in my face about that everywhere I go, there it is.
Yes, Pisces is usually subtle. Not this season. I think
Mm-mm.
in our face, slapping me in the face, basically left to right. And for me, it's in my eighth house. So I've had things stolen, I've had things returned, I've had all sorts of stuff happen where boundaries were crossed, and the universe has exposed. Ultimately, anywhere where I was even, subtly weak, where the door wasn't locked, to amazingly ignorant, where it's just something flew right through. There was nothing went unturned or unrevealed. I think in this Pisces transit, where a lot of times in Pisces, you kind of leave and you're like, oh, you get it like 2 weeks later what that was about. Not this one. It was like in your face, lessons the entire time.
Pisces for me is my second. And it's been a whole lot about the value that I put into my career, into how I take myself out, and
Yeah.
into the fears of if I do this or if I do that, how that would impact my social media, my channel, or my clients. And I've just had to be no, no, not even go there because this is a place we haven't gone, right?
Yeah.
And but the path is being forged, so we've got to go. We're watching the path being forged. So what is it that we're so hesitant about?
I also found that, because this is, Saturn is now at 22, I think Pisces today, if I'm not mistaken,
Mhm.
and which is a quantum degree, which means, right now the lessons are going to a new dimension. So, up until now, Saturn has focused on the first and second decan. And so we've been taking responsibility for our own karma with ourselves, the first decan, and our karma with others, the second decan. And I found that was extremely a strong theme too. I closed a lot of doors. We'll just say put it that way. Where I was just said enough is enough. I'm giving you a lifetime now. So there was a lot of that I found, but I also found that ultimately we're closing a lot of lifetime loops, like really coming to full circle on certain things in my life, saying I'm done, like I'm done, and opening the door to new potential. I also had a lot of new come in this month, like a new soulmates that I feel are going to. I mean, we'll see. Time. It feels like new soulmates. It feels like people I'm going to be spending a lot of time with going forward. Really pleasant surprises of relationships that just plopped in out of nowhere, where I was just simpatico. Think I knew this person in the past life, that kind of thing. So, it had its dark and it had its light, both Pisces.
Well, and that's what it does. I
Mm,
think there are a lot of people who used Pisces in that old traditional way of trying to escape the world, escape themselves,
mm.
escape what their heart wanted. And I'm afraid a lot of people did fall into that trap. There's a lot of people that I know who fell into that trap. And those are the relationships that are going away. Mine have gone away much easier. There's not been the drama. There's not been the conflict. There's been kind of just the gentle letting go.
Speaking of letting go, I know three people who passed away.
Mm-hmm.
In Pisces, of people or people directly.
Mm-hmm.
One case an overdose. So it was pretty dramatic in that sense. It's like God kind of pretty much said, "This is your last chance. You've got to get this ship together," and some people just did not listen. They just wanted to play that to the line, and it went over the edge. In that sense too. So it was sad in that regard to some degree, but not surprising. I'd say the ones who went down, we saw it coming for a long time. So it really was a. I feel we can say without a doubt that our karma issues are over now. I mean, I'm not saying over for a lifetime. I mean, you go back and you do that again. Shame on you for doing it three times. But I feel like now with Saturn at 22, as we move into Aries, the rest of Saturn is going to all be about global stuff, global karma,
Mm-hmm.
global economy, global world power domination issues. The karma. I think we're going to shift now and see a lot of headlines with more government, big business, global kind of situations where that karma corruption is probably exposed and maybe even dealt with. What do you feel?
Absolutely. And that is somebody else's karma and not mine.
Oh no, and that's it. You know what? You just stepped on, the lesson of the whole damn transit. It's not
Mm-hmm.
I think part of our karma was that we thought it was, and so finally we are just like, y'all go ahead. We'll be watching from home.
Well, we thought it was our karma
Yes.
because of guilt and
Yeah.
because maybe there was a part of that that we haven't resolved. But
Yeah.
I've resolved that. That is not my karma. I don't need to have that argument with you, that type of thing. If that's yours, you have at it. I'll love you. You're over here and I'm over there. I'll love you from here.
Yeah, I'm thinking of Dolly Parton's song "I'll Always Love You." Like
You want me to belt it out real quick?
yeah. I wish I could belt it out. It'd be funny. Yeah, that'd be interesting. And you know what I would say? That was part of the karmic lesson too. I think, at least for our subscribers of Sirius. Sorry, now we are broadcasting live to all of our free networks today. We're going to do this always with the Mega Monthly Zodiac show. But one thing we've been drilling home in Serious Joy is that we realize now that our life is about us and that we focus on ourselves and that everything will take care of itself if you just focus on yourself. And I think a lot of us have learned that lesson and cut the cords to this codependent relationship with what the media says and things like that. So it's been an eye opener. I think Pisces finally drilled that nail in.
Well, and I think the last thing that I will hit with that is at least what it has done with me on that is it's hit me in a place of like my habit and routine. So my
Mm,
habit and routine was maybe to react, or my habit and routine was to do a little bit of this. And it's really hit the management of it, which to me, Saturn in Pisces at 22 would certainly be doing some with. But it's hit the management of now I am proactively making sure I'm I know it'll become a better habit into 2026, but it is part of my daily routine now to not get involved in all of that stuff. So personally for me, that's been one of the crowning things about this Pisces transit has been changing those habits with all of
yeah.
that.
Yeah, well, you fall into subconsciously. Me too. I didn't hear about the Gulf of America till like days later. Like
Oh, I know you were talking about that earlier this week, and we were like, "What? You hadn't heard that? No,
I
you
didn't hear
had
it.
not
No,
heard it."
I didn't know that we suddenly own the Gulf. That's awesome. I'm just kidding. Now, just to quickly, and we'll stop with Pisces. A few of the main topics that hit us during Pisces and planetary. One of the big
Hmm.
ones was that Mars went direct. I mean, that was a
Hmm.
big sense that finally our ego is moving forward again. Mars retrograde, I think, was really after it went direct, you could tell the effect it had, like the black and white of it, because it went retrograde right before Christmas, so it's kind of hard to. Christmas is already weird with energy, anyways. Once it went direct, like, oh, shift. That I was low. I was tired. I was
Hmm.
not doing things right. And Mars in Cancer direct was pissy. I was pissy, pissy, angry, pissy. Like, boy, my anger, right? Those types of things come back with Mars direct. Mars still direct. Mars still in shadow. Actually, we'll talk about that this month. In Aries coming out of shadow, but probably one of the big topics of this last Pisces season.
Oh yeah, and I'll just say very quickly for me, it wasn't so much about the being pissy as it was being grumpy when I was alone. Now I know that's going to sound really weird. When I didn't have any time, I didn't really need to be grumpy when I'm just all by myself. But that's when I found that I was the grumpiest, and I could look and see how Mars was hitting my chart every time it was doing that. I got Mars and Leo anyway. So it was really just making me grumpy when I
Yeah,
was by
yeah.
myself.
We know.
Yes.
Just
Yeah,
teasing.
well,
She might be
yeah,
like,
well, we know about that Mars pissy part that you were talking about.
yeah, we do. And what about the eclipse, Robbie?
Well, that eclipse was at 23 Virgo, and we were calling that this eclipse of a greater understanding about reality, and
Mm,
not the invitation to move more into it, but kind of getting this aha of, oh, this is so and so's reality, and that's that company's reality, and that's that person's reality. What is mine?
yeah.
And that it was by defining and just seeing that as just information, not needing to judge it, that it just gave us a better tool for how to dance with it. To me,
Mhm.
it took me off the hook with a lot of stuff. I also have a moon at 24 Virgo. So it just took that off the hook of just seeing the reality and go, oh, that's how it is.
Being astrologer gave me permission to go ahead and just kill it. I think I already knew I was going to die, but a lot died. Particularly my vision of love. For Taurus in the fifth house, I really had a wake up call about love. Interesting, very private, but still very real. It was powerful.
Hmm.
Um, we have, of course, Venus and Mercury then went retro, bitches.
Mhm.
As soon as we have Mars come back online, we lose our female side and our mind. And I have to say, Mercury retro so far hasn't really hit home too hard. I think once it goes into Pisces, though, it's going to be the issue. Venus retro and Aries as well. Interesting, they're both retrograding through the early stages of Aries, which means to me this is the breakdown of releasing the old ego, which is what we're going
Mhm.
to talk about here in Aries is the birth of the new one. The old ego, the old drives. I mean, once you face that Pisces karma and you clear it up, now the ego, which is the expression of that karma incarnate, has to be rewired. So both Venus and Mercury moving backwards, and for me, anyways, like the only evidence of I've had of that is like not being prepared. Just feeling like God, I should have done a lot more. Just revealing where I'm not prepared in type of stuff. Have you felt that or?
Not so much about that. What it has just kind of been for me has been just a deeper sense about my path and my direction,
Mm,
and where my hesitancy in owning that has been,
mhm.
and more with the mind, with the Mercury retrograde, where my mind has gotten in the way. That's where it's been for me.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it's been like, well, I should have had this before I got started. I should have had that before I got started. So it's for me revealing where I didn't have enough prep, I think. Now, Mercury will station direct, by the way, on April 7th at step 26 Pisces. So
Mhm.
Mercury will come back online with a new vision or a new commitment or devotion to our Pisces, let's say legacy or a Pisces goal or a Pisces spiritual mission. So if y'all, take your spiritual mission for what it is, y'all. But by April 7th, you might have a kind of a refined look at that. Venus will station direct on April. Is it also April 7th? No, April 12th.
No,
Excuse me,
April
April
12th.
12th. And Venus stations direct at 24, which is a Grandmaster Venus degree. Kind of funny. She doesn't play games. I think at that point too, that even may even be a relationship. Now they look at it here live on TV. That might be just like, okay, Mercury's saying, I'm going to commit to this. And Venus might be going, and I'm not going to commit to you. Like there might be some relationship that's out. There might be some relationship that's in all of a sudden. I think when she stations direct with Pisces. And then, of course, today we're living the last one, Robbie, right?
Sun conjunct Neptune, something that hasn't happened since 1861. And I did look it up to see when the last time that was. It was 1371.
Mm,
The last time that happened. Now, I didn't go to see what kind of things
great.
were going on or stuff like that, but that's a long time. And I didn't look to see when the next one is either. But that's a long time at 29 degrees, no conjunction there.
Mm,
And we talk about this as it's the last degree of the zodiac. 29 degrees is tested. It's
mm,
the net 11 looking for the authenticity. And
mm,
with everything that we have gone through with the Pisces transit, to me, this is a bit of you can run, but you can't hide. And that meaning from God universe. That this thing that you said in your soul you wanted to at least experience, come to understand during this lifetime, a lot of that is now. And it doesn't matter where you go, it's following you, it's dogging you. And either you're going to make the choice to embrace it or to turn your back on it. If you turn your back on it, okay, we're not here to judge that,
Mm.
but it means that there's another go around with something that maybe you haven't cleared out, and maybe that's what's going on there. But I mean, I've done things to make sure I'm moving forward.
Yeah. Well, I think 29 is an interesting number. I feel like it's a moral crisis,
Hmm.
to some degree, and I feel like the Civil War was a moral crisis. Ultimately the moral crisis was over slavery. I think to some degree. And there's also, I think, over control of money. That's a whole other story for another day. But now I think to some degree I don't see the moral crisis in public as much as I see it within a person. I feel like this second round, had to do with really our own personal karma. This moral crisis, and are we going to come out of our own, like you said, our karmic issues or not? This is a final test. I think 29. So like any splinter of a lesson that you didn't get, it will kind of think come up because Neptune stays 29 for a while, right?
Yeah, it does.
We'll talk about
Until
Neptune going to
March
Aries.
30th.
Yeah, so for the rest of March,
Yeah.
we're on this test, karmic test, if you will. And I'm being tested by karmic partnerships from the past. They've come knocking, and I've gone ignoring.
No more, no more. Well, I'm going to add this shameless plug for the next self study hall because I have been running all kinds of charts about that last time,
Mm.
comparing it to this particular entrance of Neptune into Aries. It is fascinating what you see, but you can see where there was a collective karma in 1861. And now there's an individual. There's still some people who are playing that collective karma. But when you look at the transits for when Neptune goes into Aries on March 30th, you see the we go and you see the you in it, the you that you play in it. So shameless plug for next Wednesday's self-study hall, where we're going to have a panel discussion about that and what it means for us individually.
That's gonna be great. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm
Mhm.
pulling out my chart too. That is for Serious Story subscribers, by the way. You can get it at SeriousStory.com and join up for just $3.99. A lot of programming like that where you get deep, and you're gonna have charts on and guests. So we're gonna go over personal charts too, Robbie, right?
A little bit, yes.
Yeah, it'd be great. And yeah, it's a big deal. I feel like Neptune and Aries. I felt that Neptune moving into Aries psychically the whole time. Like I can feel the jump. It does feel like things move into action. I guess the last thing to say is that with Neptune at 29, it's a stretch of what's possible. I do believe that spiritual miracles are possible at the 29th degree. It's part of my book. It's part of what I talk about in depth in my own private work. And I feel like that in that moment, what I'll say to all our subscribers, don't give up on something you're supposed to fight for. But in the same token, don't keep fighting for something that's dead. Let it go, let it die. South Node in Virgo at 27 right now. Just let it go. Fight that fight another day. And when
Mhm.
I think South Node in Virgo is going to do a lot of tearing down of a lot of things that don't no longer apply. And so to some degree, you have to sort of figure out what side you're on. But yeah, so and I would say so maybe we might have. Dare I say some sort of change of history. I would predict with Neptune 29.
Mhm.
You,
Mhm.
I mean, like the South seceding, for instance.
No, the South has got karma and it has to help save, not secede.
No, no, I'm just saying the last time this happened.
Oh no.
I'm saying some sort of major event, like the Gulf of America, something like that. Where it's like what? I
Mhm.
think I would predict with this Neptune 29. All right,
Well,
well,
and let me just add something real quick there.
yeah, go ahead.
I've been paying attention to the astrology community, and I think we're one of the few astrology services that is saying that this is a launch, that it's a launch for how well you will choose to use it. If you choose to go into the doom and gloom, if you choose to sit there and wait for World War III, if you choose to decide that that is exactly what's going to happen, it will find its way into your world. But I think we're one of the few that is saying, actually, this is a red carpet if you will use it as such. And I hope that by the end of this particular mega, we convince people of that.
Thank you for saying that, Robbie. I appreciate it because it's true. I do feel like Serious Joy actually. I'm gonna go ahead. I mean, here's also new. We don't usually tout, but we are now. That Neptune Aries is making us get an ego now. Like,
Hmm.
I think you're gonna see. I think you're seeing a fraction, everyone, in you're gonna see a fraction in reporting. Okay, so astrologers have always been doom and gloom. That's part of who we are. If you look at the old books, they're all doom and gloom. When I was reading astrology the first time I had a chart, I broke down and cried. I'm like, I'm a horrible person. My life is, if I just read the books because they were dark.
Hmm.
And now we're at a splitting point now where you're going to have, I think, you're going to have people who are moving to build the new world. And we've been instructed not to even care about the other one. I mean, not to not care. I care. I love you, everything else, but I don't have the time, to go down that path anymore. And I think you're going to see some people hanging on and just riding that Atlantis down. Well, I rode the first Atlantis down, so I don't need to ride another continent down in despair. So I think if you weren't in Atlantis, you might be riding it down now, and that might be part of your journey. But it won't be what we're reporting on Serious Joy. We're going to keep it very positive, and we're going to help people come into their power.
Absolutely. Stay in their heart and in their serious joy.
Holy, yay. Good plug. So now let's talk about Aries. We call Aries christening the Wego, christening the Wego. And we say that because, we have a team of astrologers. We meet every Monday morning. We talk about this stuff in depth, and we feel like that there's a new ego being born. I think Neptune returning into Aries is God crafting a new ego. I really think so. And I think we get new versions of that all the time. You could look at it as like, the new, DNA, DNA changes, DNA activates and deactivates. Science has seen that. Okay, fine. It's a reactivation of DNA. And that, because our ego is DNA, it's built in our bodies. It's sort of hardwired. It's the hardware probably, where spirituality would be the software. And so this is a hardware upgrade. This is a firmware upgrade, where our firmware and our ego is being firm about something else now and not something else in the past. And what we're firm about is it's not just about me. It's a we. The idea of it being me is now gone to a we. This is the preparation for unity consciousness. And some people have asked me, well, what about people who just don't get it? Where's we go? Where are they thinking about others in that sense? And my answer is, well, they'll still think of others, but they'll think of the other as the enemy, think of the other as the person, the problem. So they're still thinking of another person. They're just vilifying it, for their own gain, because they're still caught in the old push and pull of black and white. So we call it the we go, and that's because this is what makes we go. How does the we go? And that we go is from, some cases, a light worker including themselves finally. Like, finally, I'm going to include myself and think about myself in the equation. It's the a-hole who finally includes the other, too. And it's also the we in the sense of the collective, the globe, and the beginning of unity consciousness. That's what I feel the we go is. And so there's many focuses, I think, going into this we go. What do you have to say on the we go before we dive into the details?
I think that I would say on the we go that part of that is also the opinion and the attitude that we hold for those that will not be going along with us, that we're going to hold them in love. We're going to see them in possibility, that we're going to see their better part. It's a little bit like, if you're a healer, you always see your client or your patient is healed. You don't see the tumor. You don't see the cancer. What you see is you hold the light of them healed. And so even though they may be over here in this part of the world doing, destruction and life negating things, that it doesn't mean I'm going to go, nah, and not pay attention to the fact that they are doing these things. It also doesn't mean that I'm not going to keep myself from that. But it just means that I don't need to hold them down as lesser than. I just don't need to be in this place other than seeing them in an enlightened way, even though they're not acting that way. To me, that's part of the we go as well.
Well, okay, I agree. I think it's great and high of you. And actually, I'm the same way. Like I said earlier, I feel like if you were on Earth in ancient times and you didn't ride down, you didn't live the fall of Atlantis and you didn't live the fall of Lemuria, you came, from another planet at another time, came back, came on the soul ship. We talk about immigration. What about spiritual immigration? If you spiritually immigrated to Earth later, then you really are going to write it down now. You know what I mean? Like, I think you're gonna have to live this experience of like the sky is falling, the earth is dead, and then realize no, nothing is more true than my spirit. There's that lesson, and you're right. The way I look at it is like, oh, been there, done that. Sorry guys, I'll be here for you. It's kind of like in high school, looking down at the kids in elementary over there, and it's not even to judge people. By the way, no one's better than another person. It's just about when you got on the ride, what lessons have you learned, and it's acknowledging sort of as the ones who've been there, done that, having compassion and holding space for what's a shitty lesson? You know what I mean? Like, in life.
Part of how I have learned to say that is that that is not the path that I would have chosen for you.
No, but I don't think you get out of it either.
No, I don't think so.
I think, I've just lifetimes I've killed, lifetimes I've regretted it, lifetimes I've done a lot of crazy crap, and I don't think you get to the light. Most people I find who are in the light now were in the dark before. no one has a straight A record at all. If you do, you're not trustworthy. You know, as far as I'm concerned, if you ain't fallen in the dark and pulled yourself out, I'm not hiring you. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, because you ain't trustworthy. You ain't got your time yet with the devil. So I think you got to do that dance and then come back to us. You know, so it's
Oh
interesting.
yeah. And those dark lifetimes, oh, believe me, I've felt them and I've noticed their presence. I've had to do some work with them. So I agree with you. They are coming up. We are seeing them,
Mm,
but it's also what's pushing us toward this greater we go. We get it because of the contrast now. We get it. We
yes,
get it, you
I
know.
get it. Yeah, me too. I mean, I think in this last, and then we'll wrap up with this with Pisces. This for me, this last decade of Saturn and Pisces was my dance with the shadow in the sense of just coming to terms with all those shadows that had been not repeating in this lifetime, but echoing for me to understand them and to really just put those to rest. I think that was what this last Saturn in the second decade was. You know,
Mhm.
one last dance. Is that a song too?
It is
Yeah.
a song, I think, from the 70s disco era. But
Oh,
yeah.
last dance. Yeah, yeah. It's always a '70s song for me. Always.
Hmm.
So let's dive into the first week, shall we?
Let's do so.
Of Aries. Now, this is, of course, our broadcast for Aries. This is us broadcasting to all of our channels, social media. We're going to always give this particular show out for free. Well, not free. There'll be commercials, but to keep us active and on the air. But this is our investment into society is that we'll always give stuff for free, and we'll always do this broadcast before the sign actually happens. So you have sort of a forecast of what to expect in the upcoming sign. In this case, Aries. The I act, I am state of awareness. Now, I've always said that Aries is I act, I am. I believe the Wego doesn't have I act anymore. I don't feel like we have to act to prove anymore. I think those who are in this new Wego, this new perspective of ego, have proven enough. There's nothing to prove. We own it now, right? And that's part of what it is. In this first week of Aries, is from March 20th to March 29th, by the way. We call this chapter 1. The title for this is Seeing Wego as the Way We Go, basically, the way to go. The Wego is the way to go. What we mean by that really is of the solar eclipse that's coming, we feel is the christening of the Wego. So we feel this solar eclipse at step 9 that's going to happen is what actually forges the Wego. I think it takes a lunar event like an eclipse to sort of, bake the DNA into the new ego, calling it the Wego. But it's also, I think, this week, sort of all week long in the first week of Aries, you're sort of wanting to do it the old way, but then seeing the new way. No, wanting to do it the old way, then you see the new way. Old way, new way. So, I think you're constantly stopping redirecting yourself and starting to train yourself to go with the we perspective. And again, for many people, we means that you're including yourself for the first time. I mean, most of our clients, it's the inclusion of the self, all right, that they were missing the whole time, right? Now, the subplot of this week is we go standing tall in a world ego, all right? Now, this means that it comes from the fact that Black Moon Lilith will move into Scorpio. Hooey, is she dark in Scorpio, man? You talk about Black Widow. You know,
Mm-hmm.
this is the darkest Black Moon Lilith I ever seen. I went back to the other times that she's been there. We'll talk about it in our megas for individuals. And it was the darkest time of my life the last 2 times Black Moon Lilith was in Scorpio for me. And we have those in the individuals. We talk about that. So this is really where we are saying goodbye to that dark side. I think, Robbie, that it's us saying goodbye to that dark side forever. I don't think that's not going to be the dark side anymore. But we have to stand tall. And as Black Moon moves into Scorpio, stand tall as some things start to collapse. And the key question of this week going forward, the first week of Aries, is what is the higher truth about me that I keep ignoring? The higher truth about me. And we get this from Venus on Neptune and Earth in the first decan of Libra, where Earth is going to be manifesting a new mirage with ourselves. As the sun is in Aries, you create the new Wego, the new ego, basically. It's not about fight or flight. It's about thriving. So from survival to thrival, as we say, is the new ego's intention. We assume we're going to be okay. We don't think the sky's going to fall anymore. We come from that perspective of having survived Atlantis and getting it back. And then at the same time, with Earth and Libra, well, then how do I relate to myself if that's the case? Do I keep beating myself up? Do I use punishment as a tool to make myself motivate? Do I judge myself now to motivate myself? I don't think so. I think it's a new relationship to ourselves with Earth and Libra. Robbie?
Earth and Libra to me is also a bit of noticing how very different you are from a lot of people. You're calmer. You're in that we go. You're in a better state of mind. Everyone else running around like Chicken Little with no sky falling and their heads cut off, and
Mm.
you're noticing how different you are. And sometimes that can make you go, "Wait a minute, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Uh, what's wrong with me? There isn't anything wrong with you.
Oh,
You are in that better place." So Libra in Earth, I think they just because we live on Earth, I think we'll just kind of notice we're different now, and a lot of people are still working to catch up.
and so are Libras. I mean, actually, I've had a couple Libras clients over the weekend and stuff where I got close to them. I mean, just closer, had more time, and so they're starting to open up how what they went through with the South Node in their sign, and
Mm.
Libras have been called by God to stop being codependent, and what I think we were talking about there is our tendency to be codependent, where
Hmm.
it's like I'm not gonna be okay unless I save them. I'm not gonna be okay if this is gonna happen. So I think that Earth in Libra is like eliminating that now. It's like I'll be fine. I hope you'll be. I hope you will too. I'll get to you as soon as I can. Like that sever, which is Judeo-Christian, programming probably, when we first
Well,
taught to do.
or being codependent on needing the group to tell me I'm okay.
Yeah. Needing the approval from the world. Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. So those, yeah. So really, this first, so you can see right now the power of the we go in the sense of we really are standing tall in a way that we have never on Earth, I think, stood tall in our
Hmm.
recollection, right? What
Right.
Christ was bitching about 2,000 years ago, same kind of thing. And so let's do a walkthrough of the week and what we can expect.
Hmm.
We'll both say this, like two Kazimis coming up, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Sun conjuncting Venus, and then and Sun conjunct Mercury. We've got one at 2 degrees Aries, the other at 4,
Mm.
and so we start with that week being incredibly personal,
Yeah,
very personal at the core, personal. So I would
yeah.
expect just those couple of days right there, something very personal about your own self comes up. Maybe some thought that you had about something and you didn't even think you could think that way anymore about your own self. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
uh,
I see the Sun Venus, which is Saturday, March 22nd, probably having some compassion for yourself where you haven't,
you're going to
like
need to.
acknowledging yourself, like, God, I did put myself through fucking hell. Like, and then Sun conjunct Mercury at 4, you better wake up. That's a wake up call
For.
that day. Yeah. Wake up and see yourself differently than you have before.
Hmm.
And then, of course, shortly after that, the bitch moves into Scorpio.
Black Moon Lilith goes into Scorpio. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so we spend a bit of time with Black Moon Lilith at 0 degrees Scorpio, the the sign that rules 0 degrees.
Yeah.
So I think any kind of fear about revisiting, uh, as you said, like things that happened back in 2016 and 2017, the last time this happened, and what it was 2007, 2006 and 7, the last time, the time before that.
I was looking for
So
that in the background.
yeah. So any fears about revisiting some of that stuff, and I'm going to advise everyone: don't get into the compare and despair. Don't get into compare and despair. This is a different period of time than what 2016 and 2017 was. Things are totally different. You don't need to compare this period of time to that one.
What's interesting is so when she went it's 16 and 17, right? And was one before that was 6 and 7?
Mhm.
Okay. Which were horrible years for me. But you know what? The real darkness got exposed during COVID for me. Like what the real world darkness was. So the last time the Black Moon Lilith was in those signs, I was imagining more and adding more to it with my imagination than I think I'm going to this time. You can yell boo, and I'm like, you can't spook me now, that kind of thing. So I feel like this is an interesting one. Those were really dark because we did not know what was lurking in the dark, is what I'm saying. And I think that in COVID, we know everything lurking in the dark, right?
Oh, yeah, with Pluto having gone through Capricorn since
Totally.
2020, yeah,
Yeah.
we know what's in the dark there. And if we don't, we know there is something there and we know how to sidestep it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And we can send him an email. You know, we know exactly who they are. We can show up at Davos. We can show up. We know exactly what's
Get out of the way.
yeah.
Oh, golly. So,
So yeah. Go ahead.
well, and then after that happens, like the very next day is when Venus retrogrades back into Pisces. You want to go over that?
Yes. So Venus back in the Pisces, just when it's starting to sharpen up, it's going to get cloudy again. I feel when Venus retrogrades back into Pisces, which is on Thursday, March 27th, you know, she's really exalted there, so she's feeling good. She's offline. She's like, where is she? You know, she's laying out by the pool. But that also means that you're having a hard time focusing. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, but I also feel my guides tell me like when she goes back and we've cleared out all this stuff, I think our psychic awareness is sharp.
Mm-hmm.
A retrograde to me is more psychic than a direct, and because you're turning inward for the message. And so I have a feeling you're going to get a lot of signs. And so what I say to everyone is like, listen to what your intuition is telling you when she goes back into Pisces. She's going to go back to step 26, 24, excuse me, right? So
Mm-hmm.
she's back to really evaluating whether certain relationships in your life are valuable anymore. This might be the final stand and the final call for some of those really deeply embedded relationships that are karmic, like lovers or business partnerships or or people you're partnered with, or even a child who just will not get it, and who you just have to take a step away from. Like this kid's gonna have to learn the hard way, because I just
Mm-hmm.
can't keep saving him or her, kind of thing. So I think there'll be some really deep relationship analysis there, and then Venus will actually conjoin Neptune at 29 Pisces on that Thursday. So she gets a little punch drunk. I'd say be careful in that first moment.
Well, she does, but Venus is her higher, excuse me, Neptune's her higher octave. So
Mm,
it is an invitation for maybe we don't reach for that punch drunk. Maybe we just take it a little bit higher. And maybe that's where the challenge is.
okay, right. I'm a
Yeah.
man.
I'm here to balance you out there, Christopher.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So after that, now we've got a new moon solar eclipse. This is a partial solar eclipse. It isn't a full one at 9 degrees Aries. A couple
Mm,
of things about this one, real quick. This is the last of six that we had at 9 degrees. And
mm,
isn't it great? We had six. That's Venus ruled, and they're at 9 degrees, and we're ending up those new moons at an Aries ruled degree in Aries. And this is where we've been saying it's crowning the Wego. This is the initiation period. So I'm going to say go buy a crown. I have a crown back here where you can't see it behind my green screen. I'm going to go buy another one because I think it's worthy of it. But part of what we're also seeing this new moon solar eclipse is that this is where your mind is going to accept that this is a new spiritual timeline. That if you will work this, it's a new spiritual timeline because right after that is when we've got Mercury retrograding back into Pisces. So there's a lot about a bit of Phoenix rising on this one, but
mm.
it is uniting the ego with the heart, and the mind sees that that is a new spiritual timeline. And to me, it's kind of explained to the mind, so the mind doesn't fight you on it, which could be a tendency when Mercury retrogrades back into Pisces
Totally.
later that day.
Yeah, well, exactly. So I think the new moon solar eclipse at 9 degrees Aries. First of all, Mercury stationed retrograde on 9, didn't it? Like we've
Mhm.
seen that 9, like just played with. Like every planet's had something to say about that 9.
Yep.
9 is the number of Aries in the step system of astrology. So it's a Martian ruled degree, and that degree is about the self. That is the Wego. The Wego is how you view yourself. Right there, how you see yourself is how we see you in the world, and so that is literally the crafting of the Wego, right there, 9 Aries, and the root intention of the Wego too. So there's a root intention there. I think that changes for oneself is what changes. And Robbie's right. Then Mercury just dips right back into Pisces after that on Saturday, March 29th, a little later that day. And at that point, I think Mercury is going to be again looking. When Mercury goes to those high degrees of Pisces, your mind has a lot of visibility to really third eye seeing things, like incorporating the third eye. They say that the mind is our logic and our brain, but I really don't feel like we've really incorporated our third eye view into that view very much. I think this is a third eye view perspective that's really being integrated into the signal for the first time. I think it's because we're clear of all scatter, and that we now can, we know our shit, and we know, and it's not ours. So now you can sort of see something that pops in your brain that is not yours. So I think we're going to get sharp in that regard. And then Mercury will then, of course, on the same Saturday, conjoin Neptune. So he will get drunk before he goes on into the depths of Pisces. He actually stations direct at 26 degrees
Mm-hmm.
Pisces. So 26 is a devotion. So when Mercury moves direct, our mind is ready to devote, I think, to a new spiritual mission. I think Venus goes direct. We're going to devote to the relationships that are important for that. And we have a new Migo, which is now called the Wego. And that's where we're going to realize that we are now motivated for a new us.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good moment there. So We're going to take a little break, folks. We are actually sponsored here. We can't do this for free. And our sponsor is Unite the Light. The Unite the Light organization is creating an event, if you're not familiar, where we gather all the people who want to make the world a better place in one convention. So name one other convention where they're all about where does the world make a better, how do we make the world a better place, and who are the people interested? We'll be right back after this message. I believe we need to come together once a year. Thank you for believing in yourself. Thank you for believing in us. Where do you need help? What resources do you need?
You are much closer to making your dent in social media than you think.
You're that leader.
Whether you have answers or you're seeking answers,
There's something here for everyone.
The love that is felt in the room, it's unmatched.
Talking to all these other people and all these different stages of life.
Energy changing, next level.
It's allowing me to have tears of joy, not the tears of sadness that I've had for so long.
They've all been super inspiring.
I've been brought to tears.
I'm learning how to love myself.
I've never felt so comfortable in my life.
It has been a blast. Highly recommend.
Welcome back to the Mega Monthly Zodiac Show. I'm Christopher Oteki, the Sensei to Serious Joy, and I'm here with my co-host, Robbie Hunt.
Yes, hello. And, just seeing that promo there, I'm ready, wishing it was next weekend.
Yeah, me too, although I'm not ready. Yeah, it's going to be great. That's the Unite the Light. It's going to be in Nashville, Tennessee. It's an amazing hotel that we're hanging out in. It's 2 days. We've added a third day, which is going to be cool. It's a secret third day. So with Whispers, basically a place where we can safely trade some of our own trade secrets. And the whole goal of Unite the Light is to do that. I always say to our staff and our people, the evil people get together once a year to figure out how to control the earth. Why the hell aren't the light workers getting together to help liberate the earth? And so that's what this is about. It's about bringing the people who want to make the world a better place under one roof once a year. So it's fun. And the energy is amazing. It's like 5D action there. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. It was great last year. Looking forward to it this year. All right. You ready to move on there, Mr. Sensei?
Mm-hmm. It's time for the second week of where we are. So we're talking about the Aries transit. We've already covered the first chapter, or the first 7 days of Aries, and now on to chapter 2, which is the second week. Robbie?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this second week we're calling raising the ceiling on potential. And that what we're basing that on is Neptune moving into Aries, what we've already been talking about. That really just sets the tone of this week, something that hasn't happened since 1861, that Abraham Lincoln moment, if you will. And we are saying that the subplot is that your faith is lifting to higher levels. Now, that could be proactive, meaning that you decide to do that proactively, or it's in response to things that happen. I do expect that there will be some skirmishes. There's going to be some things going down. That other life-negating kind of attitude that we were talking about earlier, there'll be people who will be involved in that. Use your intuitive sense on that day. If your intuitive sense says don't go there, don't go there. If your intuitive sense says to do something else, once we have that day or so where Neptune is settling down, going into Aries, you pay attention to that. I think that's also part of why Venus and Mercury are going back into Pisces, to just really double down on that intuitive sense. I'm thinking that we're going to need it. And then the question that we are asking ourselves is, what is the highest way to retire once important relationships? What's the highest way to let these go? What's the highest way to say our most loving goodbyes? What's the best way to create that distance between us? And by the best way, I'm talking about distance that's filled with something more loving. Not, hey, I'm leaving you because I'm pissed off, or you're a jerk, or that kind of thing. No, it just doesn't align anymore. And we're going to fill that space between us with love. That way, at least on my end, things are better, because I'm participating in that we go, it's we go, that dash in between. I think you are the one who gets to fill that dash. And if you're filling it with the negative stuff, then it doesn't work very well. And just very quickly during that week, part of what's adding to all of this is that we have Saturn and Uranus moving to 25 degrees, Pisces and Taurus respectively. So really bringing in those faith degrees during the week that Aries moves, or Neptune moves into Aries. And Black Moon Lilith moves to 1 degree Scorpio. So bringing up some fear about bringing love into the world, or bringing love to an individual, or, good Lord, bringing love to yourself. So that's kind of how we start this week, and a bit of the overview. What else do you want to add about Neptune moving into Aries there, Christopher?
There's so much to add. I like your point though about the separating from relationships. I agree. I just want to say that. I think anyone who is actually on the ascension path already knows that if you hit them on their way out the door, you've just re-up for another round. So if you're not loving and kind and compassionate when you exit, I don't know if everyone's going to take it well, the news well, but I do think you'll see a lot of separations where people are just like, I think it's very clear. Everyone's can probably think of one person right now where it's just like, not on the same page with me anymore. We've just taken a different path. They're just doubling down on that thing or doubling down on that, and I took it differently. So, but I feel like you're right. You have to let that door close, softly and gently, and I do feel the way it works with karma is you opt out. They find a new version of you, basically, that plays that role, and things continue onwards. That's, I think, real wisdom there, and being kind in that sense. Mm-hmm. For me, the second week is, it's the teen degrees. So the teen degrees means we're bringing that new we go into daily life. And so, sure, it's all fine to be in the bathroom in the morning and be like, I'm amazing, I'm considering myself. But then you walk right into that office setting or whatever, and where they take advantage of you, and there's your first challenge. So I feel like the whole week is, being challenged to not fall into that old karmic pattern. And, and by the way, the we go has to be, self-compassionate. So it's okay you screw up. It's okay you went down the wrong path. It's okay. Like, I think you have to constantly tell yourself, it's okay. It's going to take me a while to get used to this whole considering myself thing. I think that'll be part of it as well. As far as lifting higher levels, Saturn, Uranus going up higher. Yeah, I feel like, it's time to go to the next level. I'm tired of this level personally. I think I've seen this view. I mean, we have Mars retrograde. We have nothing but retrogrades the entire part of the year. It's already March. Let's get going already. So, please feel those planets myself. So yeah, this is an interesting week. I mean, let's start with, Neptune and Aries particularly. I feel Neptune and Aries is God consciousness coming down to ego. All right. And so from a global perspective, I feel like this is going to firestart a lot of people on the inside in the sense that, one, your tyrannicals, like God told me to do something, I think you're gonna have that, like, so I think we have to be careful because I think some people are going to have like a wild coyote in their eyes because they are convinced that spirit is telling them. And spirit is talking to them, but I doubt that's the message. You know what I mean? Like, so I think there's that faction, but I also think there's the other faction of the population that's going to finally feel like it's time. Like my whole life I knew I was going to do this. It's time. I feel God. I can feel it this time. So I feel like the population just sort of hair rises, Robbie, like it's time, and that's Neptune coming into it. I also feel that, it's going to give us a lot of courage. In the sense that because Neptune is God and then Aries is ego, so I think our ego gets really encouraged through faith. I think a lot of people have natural born faith, and I think you're going to see a lot of people doing some amazing, stupid stuff and good stuff, both, because they just have this feeling of Neptune and Aries. They feel like God, the ego feels like God's behind it for once. So I feel like it's going to be an interesting, let's say, what's the word, symptom of it.
I think we're going to see the contrast, and it's going to inspire us. So I think that in the midst of all, people running around acting like fools, that there are the people who are not distracted by it. They are singularly focused, and we are going to see them. And I think it's going to inspire us. Those people who are doing that, them noticing that we're seeing them is going to inspire them. And so, yeah, you're right. We're ready to go. And because we're also just seeing, I think we're just really seeing the foolish things that people can do. And, I'm just seeing people who are older than me. And I'm like, really? That's how you're choosing to use your social media, your time with others, your reading with me. That's what you're choosing to do. Okay. So I just think we're going to see a lot of contrast. And I don't know about other people, but sometimes when I see that contrast, it just gives me more confidence about who I am and where I am and what I do. It's a little bit of knowing how to do something by seeing somebody not do it quite so well. And I think we're going to be seeing a lot of that this particular week too.
Also helps me forgive myself, because I can be hard judging myself when I see other people make the same mistakes. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm not. Yeah, this seems to be going around, and also I feel you're right. You're right. That's something I hadn't thought about. It's going to reveal the divide that we're divided. Like like the North and South. Again, here we are again. Or it's not the North and South now. I think it's the ones who've gone north as far as the high vibration, and the ones south as far as low vibration. So I think the vibration now is, it's vibration that's north and south this time. I guess the North wins again, and the Republicans. Just kidding. But, interesting enough. But anyways, it's an interesting time, no question. And I think you're gonna feel that there's a special karmic moment here, and we're really gonna feel that when that happens. Now, something else is pretty fascinating is you discovered something this month coming up, Robbie, which has to do with the God of a void of God. What does that mean?
Yeah, we're calling it the void of God oddity. I like how we're calling it that. All right, so I say, you say I discovered it. I don't know that I discovered it. It was right there in the astrology calendar. It's more about interpreting it, I think. So we have got 4 days in 2025 in which there are no exact alignments in the planets. Now, this isn't rare, it's not unusual, but it's been a while. And I've been sitting here pondering when was the last time that I recall that happening. It was either 2016, 2017. I can't remember. It happens when we have a moon void, of course, but this is unusual in that none of the planets are at exact degrees. Now, this is going to happen twice during the Aries transit. Let's talk about the first one during this week, and that's on what day is that? That is on Monday, March 31st. I'm looking at my notes there. So this is a day in which nothing feels nailed down. And you feel like there's this kind of a push-pull in the universe, but how do I dance with that? If you are an earth sign, I think that might impact you a little bit more because there's no real grounding. It doesn't feel grounded. And I also think the air signs will feel that way. Pardon me, because there's nothing really going on for us to mentally attach to. So part of what happens on these days is that it feels very ambiguous and you're kind of untethered, floating around. Energetically, that is what's going on. So part of what we're advising people is don't make any big decisions on that day. Now, you can kind of handle it the way you would a Mercury retrograde. If something was already in process and it just is kind of coming to a culmination on that day, okay, cool. But this is a day in which your emotions can be maybe all over the place and rather extreme from time to time. And so you may end up making decisions that are more in reaction to something and not in response to them. So this is a day to maybe examine how deep your reactions to something could go. Maybe that you feel, I'm really kind of realizing I'm very, very upset with that neighbor, that friend, that spouse, and that you're willing to go into the depth of it. It doesn't mean that you need to act on it or that you even need to physically react on it. It's more an internal thing that is going to, at the end of the transit, do this: provide information. That's what it's going to do. Provide information. So we're suggesting engage in prayer, do more creative kinds of things, pick up old projects that maybe you kind of left behind, maybe a renovation that you had started, maybe just start that back over again. But to be more in a place where you're just playing with it and that you're not misunderstanding this as that, where's God? God left. God said, I'm not fooling with any of this, because this is the day after Neptune goes into Aries. And we're going to be feeling a little weird anyway, and this just adds to it. So we're just advising, be cool, understand it's a temporary period of time, and that we're all going to be fine. Monday, March 31st. No exact alignments, and we'll go over the second day later on.
I wonder, that's interesting. So this is like a void of course of all planets is what it is.
Yes.
That's it. So all planets are void of course, basically is what it is. We're calling it a void of God, like as if God pulled out, like, let's just see what the kids do, Guys, it's like, and I feel like, I'm going to be interesting. I think we'll watch it. We haven't watched it before. Do things overgrow? Do people go too far? Is God usually stopping things from happening? And now they are. I'm real curious to see what happens on that day. We may not know until the next day, frankly. Compare and whatnot.
Yeah. It'll be fascinating.
Void of God, yes, here at Serious Joy. Now, then the next couple of things of this week is Tuesday, on April Fool's Day, Venus will retrograde, will conjunct the North Node at 27 Pisces. Friday, April 4th, Mercury will conjoin, also retrograde, the North Node in Pisces at 27. That North Node in Pisces, I feel, is like a Gulf Stream. I keep calling it like Gulf Stream of consciousness. You have the Gulf Stream around, that brings warm water around the continent. To me, a node is like that thing. It's just blowing spiritual energy this way and pulling it out from that way. And 27 is get out, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. 27 is a net 9, that's to a 9, it's an Aries. It's the highest form of Aries vibration, composed of our feelings and our intuition. And overall, I feel like, that conjunction is sort of, Mercury going backwards and Venus going backwards. When they're retrograde, they're open to change, right? So I think, there's some sort of a, Venus and Mercury, brainwash and intention wash, and kind of like get in line with the program already, or let go of what's holding you from moving on the program in that day. Yeah.
Well, Venus conjuncts the North Node the day after that void of God oddity. So it's on the 1st, and then Mercury doing its conjunction on the 4th. So maybe some of what we're going to go internal with is whatever is revealed or what we come to understand during that void of God oddity. I think that that's a possible way that those conjunctions could be used as well. Then let's also just continue on and sum up the week. That the week ends with Mercury going direct at 26 Pisces. That's on Monday, April 7th. For me, that's an understanding of we're committing our mind. 26 is the I commit. It's a devote state. So our mind, whatever ends up happening during that retrograde, our mind is able to get on board with everything that has happened while Mercury goes through that retrograde. That's not just any ordinary Mercury retrograde. And there's a lot for our mind to get around. And is our mind open to it so that we can accept, we can devote? And in Pisces, you got to know that God universe is involved in a lot of that decision there, Christopher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mercury directed 26. And, the thing about Mercury is, and we teach this at Serious Joy, I don't think any other site does this, is that, the step numbers bring us new illumination of what's happening. 2 is your emotion, and 6 is an open heart. And so to me, this is a real wake-up call to the mind. Like, is your mind looking just at logic and facts? Because you're in the old age, right? Your mind is not paying attention to the other states of awareness. You are not awake as far as we're concerned. So this is going to be a real divide, that Mercury direct, because some people are going to wake up with Mercury direct, and they're going to choose the wrong thing right again, because they're not going to include their feelings, they're not going to include their heart in that decision. And some people who are going to be more awake, I think, are. So I think that's it's going to create a wake. That moment is going to create a wake between where people are going and flowing. And some people might surprise you. Yeah. And like, I'm getting on that Titanic number 3. Like, really? Okay, you go ahead. I'm not risking the Titanic 3 myself. I'm not going on that cruise ship. All right. So, Robbie, we'll be right back. We're going to do one more commercial. We'll see you guys here in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you have answers or you're seeking answers,
There's something here for everyone.
The love that is felt in the room, it's unmatched.
Talking to all these other people and all these different stages of life.
Energy changing. Next level.
It's allowing me to have tears of joy, not the tears of sadness that I've had for so long.
They've all been super inspiring.
I've been brought to tears.
I'm learning how to love myself.
I've never felt so comfortable in my life.
It has been a blast. Highly recommend.
Coming up this week on Serious Joy, the Mega Monthly Zodiac Report is on the way. It's Aries season and we're christening the Migo. Is your ego ready for the reboot? Join me, Sensei Christopher Witecki, and lead astrologer Robbie Hunt as we join forces to kick off a new astrological year. Premiering this week on SeriousJoy.com. I believe we need to come together once a year. Thank you for believing in yourself. Thank you for believing in us. Where do you need help? What resources do you need?
You are much closer to making your dent in social media than you think.
You're that leader.
And we're back to the Mega Monthly Zodiac Show. I'm Christopher Oteki, joined by Robbie Hunt. Well, that was cool. It's cool to watch that commercial again. This is sponsored this time by Unite the Light. Unite the Light is an organization that's going to get all the good people together, or the people who design the good or part of the good. And by the way, that's at unitethelight.love, unitethelight.love. You can find all about it. Get your tickets. We got cool stuff. We got a honky tonk and step mingle going on, Robbie, on Saturday night. I know you're from the South, so I know. Are you okay with that?
I'm okay with it, and I am trying to decide out of the 10 pairs of boots that I have, which pair I am bringing.
I was just looking at boots the other day because we're inviting people to dress up in cowboy attire on that night and do some whiskey shots, probably. Other things, so that'll be part of the fun. And we've called the step mingle. The step mingle is actually a little secret game we play where you'll find, first of all, that you're seated according to your chart. I'll just say that. So it's assigned seating, and it's based on your astrology. So you find yourself sitting around some interesting characters at dinner. It's going to be fun. All right, so we're talking about the month of Aries coming up here, and we're previewing it. By the way, y'all, you can catch us the Wednesday that's before the sign change. We're going to be dedicated now to broadcasting to everyone for free in the United States and the world at this event, which is, an overview of what you can see the next month, part of our dedication to people. But also, if you want even something deeper, you want to go, how does this affect my sign? Well, then become a member of SeriousJoy.com, because as a member, you'll get a full video. It's like 20 to 30 minutes long on each of the 12 signs that just dives into what it means for all 12 signs. Watch for your sun sign, watch for your rising sign. Some people watch for the moon sign, and a lot of people watch for their partner's stuff too. You know what I mean? Like their wife, right? So we're talking about the Aries transit. This is the christening of what we call the we-go. We think that we're going to be launching a new ego in this particular month of Aries, and we were now on chapter 3, which is the third week of the sign. I do believe this is the one I introduced, right?
You got it.
Chapter 3, the theme of chapter 3 is realizing I am the one and the all. I am the one, the all. I am. So this is interesting because what this does is this is the week where you realize, that it's about the we now. But secondly, when you are thinking for the we, you are thinking for the one. You are the one thinking for the we. You are the character of God consciousness thinking for the we. You are at that moment God's representative. And so is everyone else is God's representative as far as what the highest intentions are. And I look at God consciousness as creation, as I think Christ energy is God consciousness. I think that one church does not own a patent on that, by the way. As Christ consciousness here way before Christ, so to speak. But at the end of the day, I think it's overall that we are the one and we are one with the one. So I think that's kind of the theme of this. We're integrating. We're going from step 18 to step 24 during this time. 18 is when you launch your daily life. 24 is you accept your fate as a result. Your fate for the future as a result. 24 is when we accept, like, all right, I guess this is the way it's going to be, kind of thing. Also, 24 is the long-term relationship step number. So, I would say, Robbie, that any long-term relationship changes will be finalized by 24. A lot of people might have realized in Pisces that this ain't gonna work, but they didn't say anything. They didn't do anything. Once Aries hits, you start fighting with her or fighting with him. Tension comes up, and so probably by step 24, this ain't gonna work. And it's spoken, it's said, things are done, paperwork is filed. Locks are changed. Now, the secondary theme of this week is committing to a spiritual tone. Okay. And really devoting to a spiritual tone is, I think, even better, because Saturn goes to step 26 Pisces. That's pretty high up. That's Saturn's grandmaster. So 26 nets to an 8, if you're familiar with the step system. And so 8 is Saturn. So when Saturn is at an 8 itself, 8 is great. Saturn's happy, licking its lips, starting to decide what it's going to do and taking control of power, taking total power. And so we come into our authority in Pisces. This is where you really are like, I know best, shut up. There's that moment where you just step into your power from all your karma and all the shit you've already lived through, and you just own that power. And so, but that power is a quiet spiritual tone because it's Pisces. That power is wisdom. That power is what you've been through over lifetimes. I think that's the one thing we're saying now. It's lifetimes. It's not just this life itself as we awaken. So we now commit to a tone. That tone commitment, by the way, may be private, may not be public. It might be you in the mirror going, okay, I'm going to act a certain way now. And I think a lot of, we didn't say this, Robbie, but I think this is where a lot of people acknowledge that they're a spiritual leader, that they're like, I'm a leader. I'm a spiritual leader now. This is what I'm here to do. So it's interesting. The key question of this week is, am I ready to partner with the world? Question, right? Our partner. That's also the interesting thing. It's like, no, it ain't one woman. It's not one Wonder Woman that saved the day. It's not one Superman that saved the day. It is actually, a partnership. If you are a real leader in the new era, you are partners with everybody, including the people you don't like, right? Which I think is part of it. So are you ready? Is your ego ready to do business with everyone, including the stinky ones that don't bathe? That's really the kind of question here. So for this first week, we're April 6th to April 12th, by the way. We go through steps 18, which is when we act on implementing that new daily life, to step 24. Some of the highlights this week, Robbie, Saturn goes to 26. We said that. Black Moon Lilith has 2 Scorpio already. 2 Scorpio. So 2 Scorpio is when the hardest fear comes up, by the way. The hardest, because 2 is the emotional state of awareness. Jupiter hits 18 Gemini, so our minds are going to have a great idea. And Chiron hits 23 Aries, which means we're going to start to heal our vision for the future. So that's the setup, Robbie. What do you want to add?
I'm going to add 2 things. Number 1, Saturn going to 26 Pisces. I brought this up on a pep talk, I don't know, in the last week or so. And, those pep talks, those things that you get when you are a subscriber to Serious Joy, one every day. That to me, 26 degrees is a place of power. That this is when you open up to the power. When you open up to wherever that 26 is, and here it's Pisces, but whatever planet at that degree, that ultimately you're opening up to this power. And you're seeing that that from that place where you open up to it, that the power can go wherever it needs to, not where your ego thought it needed to go. And here we are talking about the we-go. So to me, this 26 Pisces, and then you said, spiritual leaders, I do believe a lot of people are going to make a comment. Someone's going to say something to them about how much you have helped them. And you're going to realize that you're a spiritual leader. Maybe it is a big fish in a small pond. That's okay. But I think a lot of people are going to get a really? And realize the impact that they've had on other people's lives. And again, I think a lot of this stuff in Pisces that we're going through with this Aries transit, you can't ignore. I mean, you just can't ignore. The facts are all there. And as my dad always says, it ain't brag if it's fact. And so you're going to have to just step into some of this stuff. But then the other thing I'll add is now when we get into this week, we do have Venus conjuncting that Saturn. And now, people think of Saturn as that cold planet with the rings that is trying to restrict you. And I have on my resume that I am Saturn's defender. And I would say this about Venus conjuncting Saturn. I think that at 25 degrees Pisces, that you're going to follow a faith of your heart. I think that that's actually an opportunity for you to open up that heart in such a magical way, but to understand what Saturn does. Saturn's not, to me, the only thing that protects, because the Scorpio energy and 0, that Saturn also protects with those rings. And I think that this is part of what leads to when Saturn moves to 26, is that you see the faith around you and you've got to step into it, that you realize you've been waiting for it and that it's the most disciplined thing that you can do. And to me, when things are in alignment with Saturn, there's no fighting, there's no having to force your will, there's not having to make other people accommodate to something. It just happens. And at 26, it opens up. And so I would look during that third week of it, you just move. There is a seamless move into something. And hallelujah, with all the stress that so many of us have been under in terms of trying to find our place in that we-go, I think it's just a magical stepping in.
I agree. I am Venus. Venus retrograde conjoining Saturn. I think that's the acceptance that you are the leader. I think, you know, here's the thing. If you look around the room and no one else is leading, and you think something needs to be done, you're the leader.
I've heard that before. If no one else
right
is
now.
stepping up, you're the leader.
As far as God's concerned, like you were put there. If no one else is getting it, that you need to do something, and you do, you're the leader. Like, and that's by and so that's how power is always taken, y'all. Power is always taken not from like, let me give you that power. It's always taken like, no one wants to do this. That's almost always how it is. It's like you do it. Well, I'm sure we'll hold power with grace now this second time. Mercury conjuncting the North Node too. It's 27 Pisces. It's like, let's do it. Let's do it. I think it's going to be also kind of a race type of thing. Also this week we have the full moon in Libra at 23 degrees Libra. Now, this full moon is probably some vision of a relationship you have. Relationship you have with caffeine, a relationship you have with your wife, a relationship you have, some vision, like I thought we were going to be forever, like some vision is just not going to happen, right? It will be the total death of that vision. And as a result, now what is what the vacancy it leaves is a now what energy, right? Now what? I don't know. It's to be answered and probably not answered fully until the sun goes into Libra 6 months later. So I find that these take about 6 months to figure out, right? So that's an absence. Now that also could be, by the way, the full moon, finding out the truth about somebody, catching them in the act. Shift like that could happen. And that's what it took for you to see. I know that love blinds me, so I always had to be slapped a few times. To wake up out of it. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, here we are in the third week of Aries, and every week we have talked about relationships changing and people coming and going. And to me, with this being a full moon, I think that this is where maybe, okay, you ignored some of the other signs that this person's leaving or you're leaving. And yeah, if something comes up and you do see it, you come to understand the nature of the relationship because Venus goes direct that same day.
Yeah. Still my headline. Yes, Venus goes direct that same day. Just kidding. At 24 Pisces, which is the new relationship. So it's funny because Libra is the old way of doing it. Libra hasn't really updated from a south node, yet. Every Libra I know is still like lost, which is okay. Everyone goes through that, by the way, every 18 years, by the way. So, you were saying picking on you. But like, we're lost. Like we're lost about what is our direction of relationships. I think on a global scale, I want to have a conversation somewhere in Serious Joy. Like relationships themselves are changing. I mean, we can't get into this topic, but people aren't getting married anymore. But gay people are getting married. You know what I mean? So it's like there's a lot of flipping, and there's polyamorous, and like all sorts of different directional, directions or not directions. Or it's interesting where things are going. Well, Venus direct at 24 Pisces is okay. I'm opening up to this new spiritual relationship to God. First of all, I think it's new relationship to God that we've ever had before, and I think that's that we are God personally. I'm God, you're God, everyone's God, and it's just God's little toe, little baby cell on the little toe, mitochondria in the cell on the little toe. I don't know how else little it gets, but we're all God. I think it's a new relationship versus Christianity in the age of Pisces, where it's like God's over here and you're just this little peon piece of shit over here, and you should just be happy that He even cares about you, the child He created. So there's a lot of change there. I also think that Venus direct at Pisces 24 is the new spiritual relationship, the new spiritual view, the new spiritual point of view of marriage, new spiritual point of view. Like, what is marriage? Are we going to get married anymore, kind of thing? And what is the spiritual relationship that I have? What's my relationship with God now? Who am I? Kind of thing. So I think it's all that. I think it's interesting. That happens again after the full moon. Boom, Venus goes direct. I love the synchronicity of the planets, y'all. It's like NQ, and then okay, got the NQ, Venus direct. It just happens. You can just watch it all play out. It's great.
That's what we always talk about at Serious Joy. You can't make this stuff up. You can't write this stuff. It unfolds for you. You don't have to come up with the story. It unfolds itself for you.
Yeah.
All right, you ready to go ahead and wrap this one up with the last week here in Aries?
Hey, woman.
All righty, here we go. So this last week of Aries, it's good that Venus goes direct because we're opening our heart now in a whole new way. Because this week we are calling the heart meets the we go. Now, the heart has been sitting here, I think, being repaired, being matured. We call the heart the inner child. And I think we've been maturing some of that, watching some of the stuff going on around us. And we're calling that heart meets the Wego because during this week, Mars is going to move into Leo. And Christopher is going to talk a little bit about that when we go over the particulars. But that the subplot is that we see the potential of the Wego, because the heart is what fuels everything. And now, with retrogrades over and Mars moving into Leo, there's something that's obvious. I would mark that down for this particular week. There is something that's obvious. But there's also a lot of expansion. And we're crediting a conjunction of Mercury and Neptune at 0 degrees for that. And I'm going to go over some of that in just a bit. But then the question that we're asking ourselves this week, where do I fear the open door of potential? Now, we had Saturn at 26 degrees, this very open place. One of the things about 26 is that you open up to the open, that there is potential there that you haven't considered, and that if you don't consider that, you're still kind of at a junior level there. If there is some fear there when Mars trines Neptune at 0 degrees and 44 minutes, you may realize that. But to take that as just information. Again, information that is showing you where something needs to be tweaked. That's okay. During this particular week, Mars will go to 29 Cancer and then eventually move into Leo, as we talked about. The nodes are going to go to 26 degrees. Talk about potential. Talk about opening up. So the nodes will go to 26. They're Pisces and Libra, there's Virgo, and then Jupiter goes to 19 degrees, this big degree of where we're going to invest a lot of energy into something before we get to 20 and above. So there's a whole lot about the heart here, the heart introducing itself to the Wego, and that we are looking at potential and noticing where we have any fear with that. Take it away, Christopher. Where do we go next?
Interesting. Well, I think I'll just say this is a final interesting week because it's sort of mapping out our potential. Really, is what's happening. And the thing is, the ego would like overstep and like, I'm gonna rule the world. Like it's mine. I think the Wego's a lot more cautious, and I find it's interesting how Mercury conjoins Neptune. So we have a lot of wisdom as we're making those estimates. We're betting on that future. We're wise. Mercury on Neptune, and Mars trining Neptune. Our ego is tame and like listening to God too. And all this listening to God stuff is really interesting. And Mars in a Leo, again, ego and love. So to me, it's like it's already been decided. I mean, the energy's already corrupted. You talk about free will. Free will, my ass. The planets are saying ego, talk to your heart. Mind, talk to God, and ego, talk to God also. Okay, it's kind of foreseen that way. Well, Mercury goes into Aries. I'll tell you that right now. So I feel, I'm glad that smartass had a lot of time in Pisces, although he was probably intoxicated. But now that he goes back into Aries, I think he comes back with a fresh attitude. We all know that the biggest corruption in the world is our mind and ego conspiring against us, and I feel like we now have the possibility of at least catching them in the act. So. Mercury now is in Aries, and so I feel like we're going to get a lot sharper on Wednesday, April 16th. So expect sharpness to just like turn on. I think we're going to be sharper than we've been the entire year. I'm going to make that bold prediction because we did nothing but retrograde and cloudy the entire year. People don't even realize you're so used to being dull, you don't even know you're dull right now. They're like, we know you're dull, Chris. Right? Watching the show, I fall asleep.
Oh, golly. What this says to me about the clarity is that if you are drunk with power, if you are drunk with ego, if you have slipped through the Pisces transit and you still got some of that ego, there is big badass Neptune that will go, no. Because literally 0 Aries is go on the Monopoly game. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. And so if it's there, I think on those days of April 16th when Mercury goes into Aries and then April 17th when Mercury conjuncts Neptune, that if there's bloviators, you will see them. And I think the bloviators may hit a wall because we're just not putting up with some of the bloviating anymore, at least not in our own personal world. Let them go out there and do it. But if there's a bloviator who has managed to get to 0 Aries, they'll hit a wall. So make sure you manage your inner bloviator. And that could come up in the ego, but remember, we're in the we go. That's how I see. For some reason, the tarot card, is it 6 of Wands? I don't remember. It's the guy who's holding, it's either wands or swords, and he's sneaking away. That's what I keep seeing every time we keep talking about Mercury and its retrograde into Pisces. I just keep seeing that. I think there's a lot of people who'll try to skirt it.
Well, I think, your mind is, it's like, I think when Mercury's in those high degrees of in Pisces, God's like, you're an alcoholic. Like, it's like, you can't, he's like, you can't deny it, like, so it's like, okay, what do you do with that? It's like undeniable, kind of like screaming signs. Like you're seeing, signs everywhere on TV, everything. Like it's inevitable. It's like God is screaming at you at that point. And you deserve what you get if you ignore it. Like, you deserve what you get. Well, then Mars goes into Leo on Friday, April 18th, and that's exciting. Thank God. That says my rising. Thank God. Mars has been in my fucking 12th house forever. But now it moves finally direct into Leo, and that means that we're going to see a lot of Leos suddenly primping and looking good. So Leos have been sort of hanging low, waiting for their cue to stage. But it also means that it's like go time for the heart. That's the big. Mars and Leo is the ego. Leo is the heart. So it's like the ego is like, all right, Your Majesty, what do you want to do? It's sort of like the commanding forces of your, if you Leo is in the sense of the royalty, the Zodiac, royal because they live in their heart, not royal because they're better, but royal because they live in their heart. It's almost like the military is like, okay, Your Majesty, what do you want to do? What your heart wants? So I think it's a big green light for your heart to have what it wants. We've been waiting all freaking year for this. It's April and we've done nothing fun yet. And I think it's just going to be this exciting time for that moment. And then, okay, you want to say something?
But you're talking about the Leo. Okay, you're talking about the Leo. Let me move into my Leo here. I think part of what's also been impacting the Leo and Leo risings has been Pluto in your opposing sign. And so for many Leos, it has been, oh my God, the light is going out, the stage is going away, the curtain is coming down. And all it has been is a scene change.
Yeah.
It's just been a scene change.
Yeah.
And I think this is when they finally realize, oh, it was a scene change. I'm still here. You still love me. Okay. So I think that's when our Leos are going to come back online.
So funny. Yeah. No, Your Majesty, it's just an intermission. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Get on stage. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right too. Well, some Leos are aware. I mean, I know a lot of Leos who are masters and they know they're in the wardrobe change. They've been in the break room the whole time. In the green room the whole time or in their dressing room. But I do think it's a go time for the heart. I think it's a green light for the heart. I think a lot of it too is we've gone through all this. We're coming out of a spiritual fog. With all this Pisces shit. And so all this fog, it's like, oh, it turns out there is no boogeyman, there is no devil. It was all made by the Christian church, and so it's like all this realization and stuff. And it's like, oh, by the way, that means it's time to have fun. Oh shit, oh my God, it's right. That means sort of Mickey Mouse. It's like, oh my God, you realize, wow, that actually the consequence of it is we get to have fun. I think it's part of that Mars and Leo. And then Mars trines Neptune, and it's like, not quite yet, says God. On April 19th, the next day, God's like, okay, it's good to party one night, but let me tell you what the mission is. So I do feel like this is where, Mars trining Neptune, it's sort of like the royalty, the new royal Wego is crowned. I mean, you could say that the Wego is you could say that Mars going to Leo is actually the knighting of the new Wego. Like the Wego gets knighted kind of, it's like, okay, you are now the royal force. You are now the new representation. We're not going to rape, pillage, and burn anymore. We found that didn't work very well. We're actually our marketing company says we should actually talk to people, and maybe knock on the door and maybe not use the catapult right away. So I think as far as that is concerned, it's this, Mars trine Neptune is sort of like, okay, this is Neptune in Aries, right? I have to keep saying, I keep thinking Neptune in Pisces. This is Neptune in Aries, which means actually, at that boardroom meeting is God. It's like God is the commander in chief now. Neptune in Aries is God's the commander in chief, really. which is great. So you have to take some comfort in that. But with Mars trining Neptune at zero, zero sets the stage. Like, okay, here are the rules. We don't catapult. We don't, burn the kids alive and the people alive anymore. We're not gonna do that anymore. We found that didn't work. We went down the ratings. It's like, so it's basically this whole commandment of what the rules are gonna be, setting stage of the rules. I think that's how Mars trining Neptune ends up being on April 19th, and then we go into April 20th when life gets really good. The sun goes into Taurus.
When it goes into Taurus, well, we will burn the fires with that Mars trine Neptune, because that is 2 fire signs. That's Aries and Leo. And we'll burn the fires and we'll take it into Taurus. And that's what all those Tauruses are going to warm their little tails by, is that fire right there.
Yes, and prepare for the great feast of Taurus.
Yeah, absolutely. There we go.
Yes. Speaking of feast, so thank you, everyone. We're going to wrap the show with 3 questions from our subscribers. And if y'all want to have a question one day, then become a subscriber to Serious Joy. Come to SeriousJoy.com for $3.99. You can be a subscriber for 30 days. If it doesn't change your life, it doesn't guide you into the light, leave us forever. You'll find that we don't care. We'll be sorry to see you go. But at the end of the day, this service has been designed to be with you by your side. We're always with you. We're the only astrology app that text messages. And then you go, oh, so what? No, do you pay attention to all your notifications? I don't. So we get a text message in right on that phone. We're there with you all the way, and we know you better than you know yourself. Trust me. We have all the astrology intelligence, and we are good at it. So come on down and give it a try if you haven't already. And so we have 3 questions, Robbie, and I think I got to find the module here where they are. I'll read it. You want to read it? Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Here we go. So what would you say is the most important actions we can take in this transit to help us move forward into the light?
And that's from Escape Velocity Q. Escape Velocity Q's question. Sorry, I got Mercury retrograde. I can. Well, you answer and I'll answer. We'll both say.
Well, I would say the first thing is to just know your center, know yourself, know what grounds you. This is up and down. This is an up and down in month, and there's going to be a lot of transits that will probably test us, a lot that we will see test the world. And so I'm just going to say, whatever your spiritual practice is, double down on it, triple down on it, know your heart, be courageous and stand by your heart, open up to potential, realize that this is a place we haven't been since 1861, but this is a whole different world. Okay. And we're not going to handle things the way that we did back then. If there are people who do, they're going to be in the minority. They're going to be over there in that kind of karma. This is not yours. But you talking about moving forward into the light, I'm going to suggest you're already in the light. Change your mindset. You're already there.
I think it's valid too. Yeah. I mean, start paying attention to your thoughts and what they're assuming. I would say, for me, the transition into light, and you can see I'm clearly not there yet, is letting go of the dark. I used to think light work was like racing into being good, chanting every day, eating my vegetables, all this positive stuff to go in the light. Turns out it was throwing overboard the dark, like getting rid of the heavy shit is really what made me lighter. It wasn't that I was going for the light. It was I was letting go of the dark. And letting go of the dark means forgive yourself. Who cares? This is a simulation, as far as life is concerned. You're asleep in heaven right now. This is actually a dream. And you're taking it too seriously. So I think, seriously, we take it too seriously. And so we say get serious about your joy. That's the only thing you should be serious about in life is joy. And forgive yourself. Let things go. Learn from your lessons and move on. Don't dwell on the past because it's not your power. The present's the power. So I think these kind of standard calisthenics will keep you marching towards the light forever. And don't worry, so many people are ready and going forward now in the light. You have so many examples of people who are doing it. So we're not, back in my day, there was no one doing it, so it was really hard because you didn't know if you're full of shit or not. Now there's a lot of people doing it. So we're friends, we have neighbors, we have Serious Joy TV. There's a lot of things out there to help you.
Absolutely. Couldn't say it better.
Thank you.
All right. Next question.
Do I read it? Okay. There it is. Okay, great. Christine writes, what do the transits suggest will be the emotional flow for the month? Moon starts in what sign and ends in what sign? Oh, well, why don't you stand up here, Christine? You tell us. Okay. Well, the emotional flow. I mean, I'm not sure what sign the moon starts in on this first day. Do you, Robbie?
I can get it in a minute. Keep
Yeah, we'll
keep
find out
talking.
for you. But overall, the emotional flow is this. Let me give you more analysis than just what sign the moon's in, because the moon's in every sign every month, every sign every month, every sign every month. What makes the moon interesting is where the sun is at the same time. The sun is in Aries, so the sun is the heart. Our heart's in Aries. That means our heart is invested in our ego. Our heart is invested in our strength, our willpower, our direction, our marching forward. That's what our heart's interested in. And the moon is just a reflective energy that's reflecting the rest of you as a result of the sun shining around ego stuff. So really, it's about. I think that the main focus of the feelings is let it go, okay? Because the feelings are is harboring. The feelings are harboring the ego's resentment. The feelings are harboring the anger that so and so didn't get it. The feelings are harboring that. The feelings harbor it. In other words, it's stored in that port, right? And so as the moon moves around the whole, the earth, it's going to reveal all the times the ego is pissed off. It's going to reveal all the times the ego is just disappointed. Is this? Is that? Is this? Is that? And I say the ego, get over it, dumbass. Get over it. It's not. It's just a game, a simulation. Is that we really live in, and we take it way too seriously. So I feel like the first thing, I'll have Robbie come back with the data, but the overall, I think the emotional flow is get over it. Let it go. It's not serving you. And if you hold on to it too long, it'll turn into cancer. That's why cancer, the sign Cancer, is named after disease cancer. You ignore those feelings too long, you're going to get cancer in the body. Let it go. Just let it go. It doesn't serve you. We've got a new day. We got a new fight. We got more cool stuff to do on the earth. Life is not defined by your past and your pain. It's not. I know we have done it. We've all done it, but it's not time to do it in the future. So what did you find out with the data?
I'm going to say that the data supports the we go.
Oh, interesting.
Because the moon starts, when we start the Aries transit, the moon is at 6 Sagittarius. It ends the Aries transit at 15 Capricorn.
And that's 6 also. Wow. Okay, so that means that we emotionally open up with our relationship to ourselves. 6 is our relationship to ourselves. Mm-hmm. So we're feeling our relationship to ourselves, and we're feeling the philosophy of the relationship to ourselves, Mm-hmm. So you're just feeling the philosophy. Like, Peter Pan is feeling that he's always going to be a boy. Like what your philosophy is. And then 15 Capricorn would be how your heart feels about your, the relationships of business, basically the relationships of the serious business. That's the serious. Right? So, Saturn is serious, right? Saturn, Satan, serious. So Saturn's a serious part of it. So I think we end up going, and I like working with my colleagues. They're not so bad after all, Robbie. So that sort of thing. That's what I see.
I will add to what you have talked about with the feelings, that feelings are not facts. And there is a famous psychologist, I think it's Nathaniel Branden, I don't remember now, who calls emotions instantaneous value judgments. And when we have an emotion in the moment, it's an instant value judgment. But it's an information marker for the time for where you are at that time. Now you can go back and sit with your feelings. And the emotion becomes a feeling when it becomes visceral. If you just have an emotion and it just goes through you, okay. When it becomes visceral and it just sits in this body, like Christopher said, that's when the dis-ease, the cancer, those kind of things start. So these feelings in this Aries transit may possibly go to extremes, but that's just information. It's information. And the we go is making us responsible for our feelings and the information that it tells us. And if the information tells you this relationship is over, then that's what you do. If it tells you that, okay, I need to change my thoughts and my feelings about this relationship, considering the bigger we go, then that's what we do. Feelings are not always facts, but they're always information. And while the rest of the world will be reacting to their feelings, you will be responding to them by moving into the information that they teach you. And then you will say, thank you, God, universe, for the info.
And not science.
Right.
I love how science says no emotions are still. But I'm not anti-science. I think it's a study of magic, but just saying. Great point. I agree. I agree. I think that the flow of the month is exactly that. Emotions are the moon reflects the sun onto the earth. Emotions reflect your life onto you, and that's it. It's a reflection. It's just an image in the mirror. It's not real, although it feels real. So the ride is a lot of fun. And that brings us to the third question, which I'll let you do, Robbie.
Okay.
Or start.
The difference between now and Atlantis, is it the difference of the me-go versus the we-go? I would say yes. But Christopher, I'll let you go with this one because
You're seeing my face.
Well, but here's the thing. I really can't get in touch with that Atlantis energy on my stuff, and I don't know if that's just
Were you
me.
here? You think
I
you're
don't
here?
know. I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think so. But I would say it's probably it's the difference of the ego and the we-go, because it's the ego that caused Atlantis to fall.
It's actually the opposite.
Okay, go for it.
So, from my understanding, and my understanding, by the way, folks, is not crystal clear. The truth is that we're just now waking up to these lifetimes. We had so much damage in the in the Dark Ages, we couldn't get to the higher frequencies to read them. So, mystic psychics, we're just now starting to get to them as we've healed enough. So, first of all, there's that. Also, the Earth is now in a place where they're awakening these memories. Ancient memories are very, very high vibration and far away, and you have to be really light to read them. So we're just now picking up on it. But I have a lot of knowledge of Atlantis because I was there. I rode that bitch down in the ocean. Almost. I got on a boat last minute. But the truth is the entire civilization was we-go from the beginning. They were taught by alien civilizations how to live. Sirius was a big component. The Pleiadians were a big component. Sirius and the Pleiades were basically our parents. And so we were taught from the beginning how to live a high vibration life. We never lived a caveman life. We were kind of crafted in our DNA to be this perfect species, and we were told as such, and we started there with the we-go. What happened is that, from what I understand, some aliens started doing deals with some people, and so the ego was born. The ego was born. The selfish side was born, and that was so foreign to Atlantis. They had never even imagined that. And so because there was an alien conspiracy at the time, it was trying to take over the Earth, not just Atlantis, but Atlantis was the premium power. Basically, some men got drunk on the ego, got drunk on this drug of selfishness. And so the ego was born from the we-go, the opposite.
Well, then I would say, based upon every creation story that I have ever read and in all sacred texts, that is always the downfall of humankind or of any civilization.
And we fell, and down we fell. And I feel, this is an interesting ending that we've had this question. Really well done, Morgan, choosing that. I think that's the big battle, y'all. The Earth's about to change in a big way. I mean, I guess we can close the show talking about that. I mean, what you're about to see now is going to just put Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus to shame. I'm getting goosebumps. Gulf of America, that's the beginning. And I'm not talking about Trump. I'm talking about the absurd that's about to happen. It's just going to be a laughing stock. Really funny to watch. I mean, I'm personally thinking it's a reality show. I'm just going to watch the whole thing. It's fascinating. I was here when the whole thing went down. But the point is that really what's happening, I argue, and we'll talk about this at some point in the year, maybe in a special we do, the people that were alive in Atlantis who did the bad things, they're back. And they're doing bad things again. You're in the same role. So because Atlantis' karma was interrupted, we've been restored to where we left off. It's not that we're the opposite of who we were, where the bad guys are good and the good guys are bad. It's that the good guys are back who are good and the bad guys are back who are bad. And so now is a great race. It's a race, not a war. At least that's our framing of it. A race to see which vibration should live on, the we-go or the ego. It's frankly been ego since Atlantis fell. And we want to go back to the we-go. So obviously, I'm a bad guy. I was kidding. And so, even Bill Gates, I recognize his ass too. I remember him. I remember that fucker. I really do. So anyways, they're back. And so I feel like what we're about to do is what you're really seeing we talk about a world conflict, we talk about politics, we talk about Trump or whatever. It's not even that. It is a deep karmic issue with Earth. And the reason why you're so afraid that it could all go so horribly downhill is because it did. It already happened. We already lost the whole Earth. So don't worry, and we snap back. It took 26,000 years, but we snap back, and we always will come back. Always. It's forever and forever. So let's try to pull away from the drama of that happening. The truth is that it cannot happen again. Technically, that should not happen again because karma has already done that. We've already learned from that. There'd be nothing to learn from destroying the earth. We've already learned everything we can learn. That's the whole point. So that's my final word. What's yours?
What you said, ditto.
Oh, okay, good. Yes. I think you were there.
Well, I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. You said it all, and there we go. Yeah.
All right. Well,
That
yeah.
is where we are.
There was also Lemuria, which is actually the land of Mu. And, this will be some of the topics that Serious Joy is going to be taking on here as we turn the corner. And I guess this is what we want to say. We would love to have you a part of our community at Serious Joy, whether you are in our app, and part of our experience every day with us and praying with us, or you come to Unite the Light because you want to do and make the world a better place. I mean, we're going to be focusing all of our talent on this new era. And if you want to be a part of it, we'd love to have you aboard, and we'd love to have your talent included. And, we're an equal opportunity company and led by our heart. So, whether you're a subscriber or you're a participant or you're a volunteer or you're an employee, we'd love to work with you at Serious Joy. So that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching, everyone. We do love you and appreciate you. Until next month, we love you. Live, love, be.
All right. Love and blessings to you all.
This week on SeriousJoy.com, me and my co-host, psychic medium Scott Cruz, shoot the shift on our weekly show, Leading Out Loud, every Thursday. This week's topic, leadership in the new era. How will new power structures organize the role of the sacred feminine and masculine? Then on Friday, don't forget to tune in to our next Astromingle, where we connect with light workers from all over the planet for a new perspective and an astrological twist. We'll be talking with Jill M. Jackson, a multi-talented psychic medium, spiritual teacher, expert speaker, and author. It's a can't-miss episode. All this and more coming up next week on SeriousJoy.com. I believe we need to come together once a year. Thank you for believing in yourself. Thank you for believing in us. Where do you need help? What resources do you need?
You are much closer to making your dent in social media than you think.
You're that leader.
Whether you have answers or you're seeking answers.
There's something here for everyone.
The love that is felt in the room, it's unmatched.
Talking to all these other people and all these different stages of life.
Energy changing. Next level.
It's allowing me to have tears of joy, not the tears of sadness that I've had for so long.
They've all been super inspiring.
I've been brought to tears.
I'm learning how to love myself.
I've never felt so comfortable in my life.
It has been a blast. Highly recommend.
Coming up this week on Serious Joy, the Mega Monthly Zodiac Report is on the way. It's Aries season and we're christening the Migo. Is your ego ready for the reboot? Join me, Sensei Christopher Witecki, and lead astrologer Robbie Hunt as we join forces to kick off a new astrological year. Premiering this week on SeriousJoy.com.